Cole thought it was just another night until an anonymous text shattered everything. Go to Lost Breeze. Back table. Now. What he saw there didn't just break his heart. It awakened something deeper. A quiet man betrayed, a wife exposed, and a plan of revenge that stayed legal but hit harder than anyone expected. Cole Thomas was reviewing quarterly projections in his home office when his phone buzzed. Normally, he'd ignore a random notification during work, but something about this one made him glance. No name, no number. Just a short, urgent message. Los Breeze. Back table. Go now if you want the truth. That was it. At first he thought it was spam, but the message didn't feel random. It was precise. Too precise. The truth. Those two words echoed in his mind. He sat there staring at the screen. His wife, Vanessa, had told him earlier she was spending the evening with her mother. Nothing unusual, but suddenly it didn't feel so innocent. He didn't overthink it. He just grabbed his keys and left. Lost Breeze was only 10 minutes away, a restaurant he and Vanessa used to visit on special occasions, birthdays, anniversaries, quiet dinners before life got busy. Pulling up now, he parked half a block away, staying low, just watching the entrance. Everything looked normal, but instinct told him this was no coincidence. He entered through the side, avoiding the main staff and slipping past the bar. The lighting and music were just as he remembered them, but nothing about this felt familiar. He stayed along the wall, eyes scanning the tables in the back, and then he saw her. Vanessa was sitting at a corner table, wine glass in hand, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. Across from her sat a man Cole didn't recognize. Early 40s, confident posture, expensive watch, and a polished demeanor. He wasn't from their circle, not someone Cole had ever seen before. They looked close, not in a reckless, overt way, but in the subtle language of people with nothing to hide from each other. The light touches, the private laughter, the way Vanessa leaned in when he spoke, brushing her hair behind her ear, nodding like he was the only person who mattered. Then she kissed him. It wasn't long, but it was real. Cole didn't flinch. He didn't step forward or call her name. He didn't even blink. Instead, he pulled out his phone, quietly snapped a photo, and slipped it back into his pocket. No words, no scene, just truth captured in a single frame. He turned around and walked out the same way he came. Outside, the cool night air barely registered. His heart didn't race. It had already sunk. Every step back to his car felt heavier than the last. At the door, something made him turn and glance back. Through the restaurant window, he saw the man whisper something into Vanessa's ear. She stopped smiling. Her body stiffened. Her eyes scanned the room, searching. She knew. She knew he'd seen, but she didn't come after him. That more than anything was the confirmation. Not the kiss, not the lie. The fact that she didn't run, didn't even try to explain. Back home, everything was in place. Dinner dishes still drying, lights left on, a photo of the two of them on the hallway shelf. He walked past it all like a stranger in his own life. He sat down in the living room, not turning on the TV, not touching his phone. Hours passed. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just waited, without knowing why. Maybe a part of him still hoped it was a misunderstanding. Maybe he thought she'd come home and say something that would undo what he saw, but she didn't come home. And when the sun rose, the silence was still intact. The next morning, he woke before the alarm, unsure if he'd actually slept. The other side of the bed was still untouched. He stood up, made coffee, and sat back down in the same spot he hadn't moved from all night. His phone lit up again. A new message. This time from Vanessa. I want a divorce. From this point on, all communication should go through attorneys. No explanation, no apology. Just that. 12 years, reduced to a few lines of cold text. Cole stared at the message, then read it again, then a third time. And finally, he did something he hadn't done since last night. He smiled, not because it felt good, but because the message made one thing absolutely clear. She'd planned everything, and now so would he. By the time lunch rolled around that day, Cole had already contacted a lawyer. Caroline Brooks came highly recommended, straight-talking, sharp, with a reputation for never letting emotions cloud strategy. When they met, Cole wasted no time. He showed her the message from Vanessa, the photo from the restaurant, and gave a brief overview of their shared assets. Caroline didn't flinch. She just took notes and asked direct questions. Cole wasn't interested in drama. He wasn't even angry. He just wanted clarity and control. By that evening, the wheels were already in motion. The joint credit cards Vanessa used were canceled. Grocery cards, streaming services, gym membership, all gone. Every shared account, revoked or locked down. The passwords to platforms she still had access to were changed. Not out of spite, but as a direct response to her demand. No contact, all legal. Caroline told him to document everything. So he did. The next day, the first email came in from Vanessa's attorney, Martin Hale. The message was polite but laced with pressure. It claimed Vanessa had lost access to basic necessities and was in financial distress. It requested an emergency support package. The implication? Cole was being cruel. Caroline replied with one line. Vanessa's original message requesting all communication go through attorneys, accompanied by time-stamped evidence of when services and accounts were canceled, after her message, not before. That ended the urgency, but it didn't stop the ripple effect. Family members started reaching out. Friends, some genuine, some not, called to check in, offering concern wrapped in subtle judgment. They said things like, "Think of what you two built together," or "She must have felt trapped to do something like this." No one seemed to ask what Cole had felt. No one saw what he saw. Not the kiss, not the indifference, not the calculation. Cole didn't respond to most of them. When he did, it was short and final. He wasn't interested in defending himself. Behind the scenes, Vanessa tried to access an old joint account they had barely touched in years. It held enough to make a difference. But Cole had already frozen it. Her attempt was logged, flagged, and added to the legal file. Another quiet misstep. Another moment she assumed he'd be too slow, too forgiving. She was wrong. Caroline kept the pressure low, but constant. Every move was documented. Every attempt at manipulation was filed. Cole stayed focused. He continued going to work. His company, a tech firm with global clients, was too big to ignore and too valuable to risk. But even there, the fallout began. Anonymous reports started coming in. Claims of misconduct, vague accusations about how contracts were handled or how internal funds were managed. None of them had merit, but even false accusations can shake investor confidence. One of Cole's board members pulled him aside after a meeting. "We're with you," he said, "but keep your eyes open. Someone's trying to stir the pot." Cole didn't ask who. He already knew. He turned everything over to Caroline. She coordinated an internal review. Emails, financial reports, employee testimonies. Everything was clean. Every accusation crumbled on contact. But the damage wasn't just reputational. A few contracts were quietly paused. Some clients postponed meetings. No one said it was because of the rumors, but no one needed to. Cole kept moving, and through it all, Vanessa stayed quiet. Not once did she reach out directly. Not one call. Not one message. She was following her own rule to the letter, but from the shadows, she was still pulling strings. That's when Caroline uncovered something unexpected. 2 years earlier, Vanessa had purchased a property under her name, a downtown condo. It wasn't disclosed in any of the financial records she submitted. She'd hidden it. The discovery changed everything. It proved intent, not just to leave, but to take what she could, quietly. Caroline filed a motion immediately. In court, Martin Hale tried to frame Vanessa as a woman discarded, stripped of her identity, left with nothing. He claimed she'd depended on Cole and was now left in the cold. But when Caroline presented the sequence, the kiss, the message, the accounts, the hidden condo, Martin's narrative collapsed. The judge wasn't buying the act. He leaned back, reviewed the timeline again, and then spoke plainly. This isn't abandonment, it's consequence. Cole sat in silence, not triumphant, just steady. He wasn't out to destroy Vanessa, but he wasn't going to let her rewrite the truth either. Everything she'd done, every step, every lie, was now on record, and she still hadn't seen the worst part. She thought Cole would fall apart, that he'd collapse under the pressure. Instead, he became clearer, colder, and more focused than he'd ever been. This wasn't revenge, it was defense, with precision. By the time the first court date arrived, Cole had stopped waiting for surprises. He expected Vanessa to twist the truth. He expected her attorney to push the narrative of a wounded wife, abandoned and left to fend for herself. But what caught him off guard wasn't the courtroom performance. It was the sheer confidence she brought into it. Vanessa walked in like she had already won. Martin Hale opened the hearing with a practiced tone, painting Vanessa as the backbone of the marriage. Someone who had supported Cole's career, managed their social calendar, sacrificed time, and now stood displaced with nothing. The strategy was clear. Frame Cole as emotionally detached and financially abusive. Cole didn't speak. He didn't need to. Caroline stood, calm as ever, and handed the judge a single sheet. On it was the original message Vanessa had sent, where she demanded all contact go through attorneys. Attached were the financial logs, showing every canceled card, revoked access, and service suspension, all dated after her message. Next came a copy of the bank record detailing her attempt to access the joint account, and then the photo, the one from Lost Breeze. No commentary, just a timeline and facts. The judge asked a few questions, all directed at Martin. When Vanessa took the stand and broke down in tears, claiming humiliation and financial suffering, Caroline quietly waited until she finished. Then she asked for permission to submit one more item. An email from Vanessa, sent to a mortgage broker just weeks before she filed for divorce. In it, she mentioned anticipated changes in financial independence and requested a consultation on transferring real estate assets under a new trust. Her trust. The mask slipped. The judge sat back, stared at the documents, and then at Vanessa. "This isn't about emotional abandonment," he said flatly. "This is preparation for separation and an attempt to preserve resources unilaterally." Vanessa didn't speak again that day. Outside the courtroom, the silence between her and Cole was final. No eye contact, no small talk. Just two people who once shared a life, now reduced to legal statements and contradicting narratives. But even after the courtroom defeat, Vanessa didn't back down. Within a week, Cole's company was hit again, this time with a fabricated employee grievance filed anonymously. It accused him of fostering a toxic work environment and uneven treatment toward staff. The claim was generic, clearly aimed to create noise rather than any actionable outcome. Again, it failed. Caroline's legal team had already established protocols. Every internal HR report, every performance review, and even meeting transcripts were pulled. The complaint collapsed under basic scrutiny. But the real goal wasn't to win, it was to wear Cole down. It didn't work. Cole had learned by now that emotional endurance was part of the process. He didn't react. He documented, reviewed, responded. He met with investors and laid everything on the table. Some appreciated the transparency. Others took a step back, but no one left entirely. He'd built too much value to be shaken by a smear campaign. And then Vanessa's real miscalculation surfaced. While reviewing old files, Caroline's paralegal discovered an undeclared investment account under Vanessa's name, opened just over a year ago. It wasn't large, but the timing mattered. She had begun moving money months before even mentioning dissatisfaction in the marriage. The intent was no longer ambiguous. It wasn't an emotional fallout. It was a calculated exit strategy. When they returned to court, the judge was more direct than before. He ruled that Vanessa had acted in bad faith and suspended all substantial alimony for a period of 2 years. She would receive a modest, symbolic amount, enough for basic needs, nothing more. The previously hidden condo was placed under scrutiny, pending reassessment. In the hallway after the ruling, Vanessa's demeanor cracked. She didn't speak to Cole. She didn't approach her lawyer. She simply walked out, fast and alone. Her performance was over, and that was when people around her began to disappear too. Social acquaintances stopped inviting her. Friends who had once defended her went silent. The man she'd kissed at Lost Breeze? Gone. No messages, no public photos, nothing. Chase Reynolds had vanished, probably after realizing the life he thought he was buying into had no foundation left. Cole heard about it gradually. He didn't gloat. He didn't feel victorious. He just noted the shift. The woman who'd once controlled the social calendar was now navigating whispers, not invitations. Her credit lines closed, her name flagged, and her story, once curated and careful, now followed her like a shadow. Cole kept moving. He didn't change his schedule. He didn't give interviews. He didn't respond to gossip. His energy stayed focused on rebuilding trust in his company and staying 3 steps ahead. The legal battle wasn't over yet, but the momentum had shifted. Vanessa wasn't just losing ground. She was out of moves. And as the walls she built began to collapse, Cole stayed quiet. Because he didn't need to fight anymore. He'd already won the one battle that mattered most. He had proven the truth. After the ruling, things didn't get quieter. They got stranger. Vanessa's legal team shifted tactics. Their demands became softer, less aggressive. The tone of Martin Hale's emails dropped from forceful to procedural. There were no more accusations, no new claims. The noise that once seemed endless suddenly faded. But Cole didn't mistake that for peace. He knew better by now. Caroline reviewed every new document with increased scrutiny. Every form was double-checked. Every word was cross-referenced. The legal war wasn't over. It had just changed shape. Vanessa, meanwhile, disappeared from public view. She stopped appearing at social events. Her Instagram account, once curated to perfection, went silent. Mutual acquaintances told stories, whispers mostly, about bounced checks, canceled reservations, rejected loan applications. Her financial world was contracting, and the final blow didn't come from court. It came from someone unexpected. A man named Derek Morgan, an old business associate of Cole's and a mutual acquaintance of Vanessa's, asked to meet. He wasn't someone Cole considered a friend, but he had always been neutral and professional. Over coffee in a quiet downtown spot, Derek got to the point quickly. "I think you should know," he said. "The man Vanessa was with at the restaurant. His name is Chase Reynolds. He's not just some fling. He's a financial consultant who targets wealthy women, shows up at charity events, claims to have connections. But what he really does is latch on to people who can offer him access." Cole didn't react. He just listened. Derek continued, "He's the one who sent you that anonymous message. He wanted you to see them. He thought that if you left Vanessa, he'd get a clean shot at her, with your lifestyle attached." The irony settled in quickly. Chase had tried to manufacture a clean exit for Vanessa, hoping to slide into Cole's place. But he didn't know Vanessa had no claim to the company. Didn't know Cole had locked everything down legally years before. And once the court rulings started going public, once the money stopped, Chase vanished. No messages, no goodbye, just gone. Vanessa was left with nothing. No partner, no financial cushion, no legal win to leverage into alimony, just consequences. Cole didn't feel vindicated. He felt nothing. Not out of numbness, but because what Vanessa had done, what she tried to orchestrate, was so methodical that even revenge felt too small. There was no act he could take that would match the weight of her own choices turning against her. The world around her shifted fast. Her name, once useful in social circles, now triggered side glances. People distanced themselves, not out of loyalty to Cole, but to avoid being dragged into the storm. She was no longer an asset. She was a liability. And in every story Cole heard, every whisper passed to him through others. Not once did Vanessa take responsibility. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She just faded, dragging what was left of her reputation behind her. But Cole wasn't immune to the damage. He had to rebuild his company's internal morale. Even though the attacks failed, trust had taken a hit. Meetings ran longer. Contracts were harder to close. He spent more time reassuring partners than innovating. And yet he kept at it. Because what mattered now wasn't just survival, it was the restoration of clarity. There was one final court session, procedural in nature. The last threads of asset division. Vanessa didn't show. Her lawyer handled it without her. There was no farewell moment, no last confrontation, just paperwork. And that was how it ended. No dramatic conclusion, no reconciliation, just silence. For Cole, the closure didn't come from the judge's gavel. It came from that silence, the space Vanessa left when she chose to disappear instead of face what she'd become. The irony was undeniable. She tried to trade up and ended with nothing. She tried to orchestrate a clean break and left a trail of evidence. She wanted control, but gave up power the moment she lied. Chase ran. Friends vanished. Reputation crumbled. And Cole? He didn't rise like a phoenix or emerge with a smirk. He simply stood his ground, maintained what he built, and protected it, not out of ego, but because no one else was going to do it for him. The cost was real. He'd lost years of peace, the comfort of partnership, and faith in someone he once trusted completely. But what he kept was worth more. His name, his company, his clarity, and most of all, his peace. The legal process ended on a Tuesday afternoon. No press, no courtroom audience. Just the final ruling read out in a quiet, procedural tone. Cole didn't flinch. He listened, nodded once, and signed where necessary. His expression didn't change, because what mattered wasn't the phrasing of the court's decision, it was what it confirmed. Vanessa had no claim to the company. It had been built long before she entered his life, protected by contracts and structured properly. Assets acquired together would be split fairly, based on documented contributions, nothing more, nothing less. The judge also addressed the undeclared condo and investment account Vanessa had hidden. The court viewed them as proof of deliberate concealment. Because of that, her request for spousal support was denied for a period of 2 years. After that, any further support would be subject to reassessment based on her financial status and proven needs, not lifestyle expectations. Cole left the courthouse quietly. Outside, there were no photographers, no dramatic moments. Vanessa didn't appear. Her lawyer wrapped up the final statements alone. And just like that, the legal thread between them was cut. In the days that followed, Cole began hearing stories, not directly, but through mutual connections. Vanessa had tried to recover her social standing. She reached out to people she once entertained, tried to rejoin committees and events. Most were polite, but few responded. Some had already heard about the hidden property. Others simply didn't want the association. What surprised Cole most was not that she was isolated, it was how quickly the detachment happened. Once the resources dried up, so did her influence. No one defended her anymore. Even Chase Reynolds, the man who once positioned himself as her future, had vanished entirely. Blocked her on social media, cut contact. Whatever he was chasing wasn't her. It was the image of her with Cole's wealth beside her. And without that, there was nothing left to pursue. Cole didn't dwell on the details. He didn't track Vanessa's downfall. But the pieces trickled in. She downsized, sold the condo under pressure, moved out of the city, tried freelancing, then stopped. No job offers materialized. The name she once leveraged now carried baggage. One day he got an email from an old mutual acquaintance. Not gossip, just a simple line. "She's finally quiet." Cole didn't reply. Not because he didn't care, but because he no longer needed to. His life slowly returned to normal rhythms. His company recovered. Partnerships stabilized. Investor confidence returned, stronger than before. Caroline moved on to other cases, though they remained in contact. She never offered praise or pity, just professionalism. That was what Cole valued most. He moved out of the house he and Vanessa once shared, not out of pain, but because the place didn't serve him anymore. He bought a smaller property, closer to his office, and redesigned his routines. He didn't rush into anything new. He didn't go public. He just lived. Some nights when everything was quiet, he still thought about how it had all unraveled. Not with violence, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a kiss at a restaurant and a message on a phone. That was all it took to uncover the truth. And that truth, simple, undeniable, was what gave him the strength to respond with precision, not emotion. He never sought revenge. He sought order, dignity, and a way forward that didn't rely on punishment, but on boundaries. The biggest lesson wasn't about betrayal, it was about preparation, knowing who you are when everything is stripped away, knowing how to act without being baited, and understanding that silence, when chosen with clarity, can be louder than any reaction. Cole wasn't proud of what happened, but he was proud of how he handled it. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't retaliate publicly. He didn't play dirty. And yet he walked away with everything that mattered intact. His company, his peace, his identity. Vanessa was left with the consequences of her own plans. Not because someone punished her, but because the foundation she built them on collapsed under their own weight. There was no final message, no closure conversation, just distance. And for Cole, that was more than enough.